many ways, my life is very blessed that that my struggles are located here. And I think for me, humor has always been a way to get through what I find difficult.
Our guest today made a bold career move, leaving investment banking to become a stand-up comedian, and it's paid off in a big way. Sindhu Vee is now an award-winning comedian, actor, and writer with sold-out tours across the UK, India, and the US. You may recognize her from Sex Education, Feel Good, or Roald Dahl's Matilda the Musical, where she played Mrs. Phelps. She's also appeared in North Star alongside Scarlett Johansson and the Amazon Prime rom-com Picture This with Simone Ashley. Beyond acting, she's a 2-time Live at the Apollo performer and a familiar face on the UK's top comedy panels. Now she's back with her latest comedy special, Alphabet, bringing her signature sharp and relatable storytelling to audiences worldwide. Sindhu Vee joins us now to talk about her journey, her comedy, and what's next.
Sindhu, thank you so much for joining us today on That Desi Spark.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Very excited to have you as well. We are huge fans of yours, and I'd love to start our conversation today kind of at the beginning. When you were a child, what were some of the things you wanted to be when you grew up?
First was a veterinarian, and then was an architect. And then we moved back. I grew up in the Philippines around 4 to 10. And then we moved back to India, where I immediately failed math. So I'd come from an American school. I went into the Indian system. I fluffed math, and they were like, "You're no good at math. You will do nothing to do with architecture, medicine. So no." And so that went out the window. And then what did I want to be? I didn't really have any other goals, because when you become a kid who's struggling in math in India, you're like, I don't know if I have any prospects. So then I just studied and hoped for the best.
When you think about your childhood, what is something your parents did or didn't do that you think set you on the path where you are today?
I used to love to talk, but I had a very bad stammer. So my mother had no patience. Like at the dining table, my father would ask us, how's school? And I would start, but it'd be like a lot of just, and because I couldn't get it out. My mother would take a piece of paper and a pen and say, we don't have so much time, write it down. So that always made me feel like I had to be quick to be funny, because I had to get it out. But my father had a lot of patience. And so I think the one thing he was instrumental in was, I used to put on puppet shows, because when you do puppet show, you don't have to show your face. And the puppets, you can make them do funny things even while you're waiting for the words to come out, because you stammer. So I would put on puppet shows for our family, and my father used to pay my sister and my mother. Like, he'd be like, you can go shopping, just come to her puppet show. I think that was the look of unadulterated appreciation on my father's face when I said something that was funny or interesting, or I thought was. I think that's a huge part of having had the confidence.
I love that. You've lived a few professional lives before being where you are today as a comedian and actor. From a PhD student to an investment banker to someone who took a career pause to prioritize family life. Love for you to walk us through the journey to where you are today.
And you're absolutely right. Those 3 things I had done, but I get asked this question a lot, and so I'd been, not asked it, but this gets pointed out a lot. And so I've gone back and looked at all the other things I almost did. Yes, so I was, growing up in India, going to school and university and so on. One of the things that happened to me, and I don't think I've ever spoken about it, it's been written about when people have done enough research, but I will tell you on this podcast, because why not? When I was about 19 or 20, Yves Saint Laurent had come to India to do a show, and they put these ads in the papers, the whole side of the paper. And at that time, India was a closed economy. So we had our papers, we had our Coke, we had our, thumbs up. We didn't have any outside stuff. So I used to read the paper, and I think I was in second year of university, so it must have been 19. And there were these ads, and the ad said, if you are over 5'7", apply for blah, 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 blah. Now, I had an aunt who was very fashionable, so she would get American Vogue, which was unheard of. So I'd heard of YSL, and she had a big bottle of their perfume called Opium. So I knew what YSL was, and I knew that I was 5'10", which was a sort of a curse in India at that time because I was too tall for anything. And I remember looking at these ads and thinking, oh, like, there are people in the world who are looking for tall girls. And that's all I thought, because I did not come from a family where you'd be like, I think I want to model. Also, I was sort of had been raised to believe that I was on the lower end of attractive because I was quite dark and I was so tall. And any riddles. And I grew up in North India. My mother was North Indian, so you had to be petite and fair. Hello? Not. Anyway. And then I was helping my father's friend run the World Wildlife Fund film festival, like near our house, because I love animals. And there was all these delegations, and we had a big dinner at this big hotel, which I'd never been to, super fancy. And while we were eating dinner and I was sitting there, this French person came over and started talking to me, and I couldn't understand what they were saying. And my uncle spoke. He understood, and the YSL show, they'd been putting this in the paper for months, and then the YSL show was like 3 days later, and they asked me to join it. I got randomly asked. I've never been more self-conscious in my life, and I didn't even I didn't tell my parents never came, but I don't have photographs or anything, but I ended up, they did their thing in Red Fort in Delhi, and I ended up opening, I think, because I remember I was the only one walking by myself, and they taught me how to walk. So I could have been a model because they asked me to sign with them. My father's a Tamilian. He was like, absolutely not. You're not. They didn't even let me go to Bombay. They were like, you're not going to Paris or whatever. You're going to stay here and you're going to study because model? What's wrong with you? And I was like, okay. But the only reason they let me do that was the aunt with the perfume was like, are you joking? She's got to at least do this. So that's one thing I almost did that I didn't do. And then the other thing was, when I was at home with the children, I started an online fashion business. And it was ethical. So it was like, there's a company, I'm sure it's everywhere here as well, called Net-a-Porter. So it was like a ethical fashion Net-a-Porter. It was called Baby Doll. Oh, I love, and it was called, and the tagline was curate with consumption. But it was like super fancy brands, some from LA, some from yours. And they had to have one of 5 things that was ethical. But given that I had no background in anything like that, it failed pretty badly. I had such nice stuff, which a lot of it I had to keep because I didn't even know you could do things on consignment. I just bought stock. But I'd been in finance, so I had some money to lose. And I did. I lost it. That was very fun, though. It was online. And I made it look like when you bought it, there was like a huge back end. Literally, I would drop my kids to school, pack things in these beautiful boxes that I had made in India from like recycled stuff, put them in my car, drive to the post office, and post them. And people thought I was like a huge back-end business. I was not, but it was not sustainable. So that was the other thing I almost did. I almost became an online fashion entrepreneur. But, I didn't do that. So yes, and apart from that, I was in the PhD program, and then all the things you said. I don't know if you asked me a question. I just started.
I love that because it was through your fashion business that you kind of got your entry into comedy, right?
Yes. I mean, 2 things happened because of Baby Doll. One is I wrote a blog, which I was much more interested in than like how many red t-shirts do we need? I don't know. But I used to write a blog, and that got me into writing and to bring what was in my mind onto a piece of paper. But that was not academic research. So that was one thing. The other thing is, yes, there was somebody I had met peripherally at one of those things where everyone has a stall of like their stuff.
Yeah.
This is how much I know about fashion. I can't even bring the words of the thing I was at. An exhibition. And yes, I knew her, and it was her email about how she was going to be funny for charity or whatever that made me feel like this charity is going bust. Because she is literally not in any way, shape, or form, even remotely amusing. That made me go to funnywomen.co.uk, and that's where it started. Yeah, well spotted.
really loved how you shared that story before, and that it was showing up and saying yes that got you down this path where you are truly one of the funniest people I have ever come across. But what I loved is your humor is something that I think anybody can understand, but I can enjoy with my kids to a point. My older son, Shirley, my parents, who think you are hilarious, and they are like, take a selfie and like, said there's us.
This is uncle and aunt.
And my mom is like, put it in the WhatsApp. And I was,
Emily, what's up?
yeah, so you're giving me a lot of street cred. But also, your comedy is so universally applicable and understandable and appreciated, while also being so true to like a very South Asian experience. How do you approach writing jokes or putting together a set that is that both and?
It's because as a comic, you talk about what you know, and this is who I am. I talk about family. And everyone has some form of family. I mean, I suppose there are complete orphans out there, and I'm sorry. I guess you have friends who have families. Oh, that sounded so unkind. But you know what I mean. I'm just being inclusive. So I talk about that, and that is, of course, very relatable. But then I am from South Asia, so when I look at my kids, there's an Indian mother looking at these children. An Indian mother was adapted to a lot of different influences and environments, but I'm still... my roots, my culture, the DNA in me, we have cultural DNA that is South Asia. And you just write from that place. And I'm not really, I don't really do stand-up to do anything else but make you laugh. So it has to be organic. Do you know what I mean? And I very often think I don't have anything funny to say. And then I don't, there's topics, politics. There's a lot of very funny political comedians. I don't think I can be funny about politics. So I don't write about that. I write about, it's a bit narcissistic. I write about what's bothering me all the time. And to be honest, it's got a lot to do with just being a mother, daughter, wife. And then now I'm starting talking about some of my girlfriends who had both 25 years. It's like, how do I put up with these people? Oh my God. But I love them. Then what do you do? Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because I think in many ways my life is very blessed that that my struggles are located here. And I think for me, humor has always been a way to get through what I find difficult. I make it sound like my family is terrible. They're not. But just, having kids, raising a fanny app and all that stuff. And, everyone's got their shit.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff is the same. So, yes, that's how I do it. I don't really think about it separately to just sitting down. And I think it's called a POV, point of view. And my point of view is, I am an Indian one to do. But I don't lead with that. Yeah. It's just there. It's like the sky. When you walk around and you go about your business, you're now like, oh my God, there's a sky. What am I going to do? It's just there. And then you do everything else underneath. It's like that.
I love that. You make it look effortless when you are on stage or when you're in front of the camera acting, which means it takes a hell of a lot of effort to make it look like that. What does preparation look like for you?
Well, let's talk about acting first, because I've done less of that and I've done it more recently. Acting is very difficult. I find it very difficult because it's not my lines. I got to memorize them. I got to not mess them up. And I got to be in the scene, and I got to give something to my scene partner. It's a lot. But like with anything else, I read some books, then I asked some questions, then for certain roles, like for Matilda, when I had to do Mrs. Phelps, I was like, there's got to be more to her than she's the librarian. And so I spoke to the director, and he gave me some tips on how to think about it. So I spoke to other people. It's amazing how much you can learn from asking people for help. And so then you do that prep, and I think in acting what I've found is that if I can figure out how that character feels, then I can do it. Because in this day and age especially, there's a lot of space for having a Desi lady in a show, whether it's a Desi auntie or a Desi friend, and if I can't find something in me or a person that I can think of that I think, felt like that character, I just sing. But in stand-up, you know what happens is, by the time people come to know who you are in anything, you've done a lot of work. People are like, oh my God, just like amazing, you just started. And it's like, no, bro, I was literally doing stand-up and doing open mic for years. So I've been very lucky that I had that chance to practice. And practice, as all Indian parents have said, practice makes perfect. And it's true in stand-up. So I had a lot of chances to get heckled, that die on stage. I still die on stage. But to get to that place, and in terms of being ready to get on stage and know what some of the feelings are going to be. And otherwise in stand-up, you're never ready. You can always die on stage. You can always get a heckle. Your jokes can always just have been funny to you. And everyone else is like, So that's, I think, two different kinds of preparation.
It's amazing. You have a very big year ahead with the release of your special, the premiere of Picture This.
Yes, very excited.
And both in a very short period of time together.
Yeah, March has turned out to be the month. So on the 3rd of March is Picture This, streaming on Amazon Prime. And please watch it. It's such a funny movie. And it's a rom-com. I am definitely the com. But it's also a very different take on what people be like, oh, an Indian mom and 2 girls. I know where this story is going. You do not. Because also the diaspora is not monolithic. And the diaspora has come a very long way. It's time to start telling the story of the diaspora that includes people like you and me who are very South Asian, and yet there's nothing stereotypical about us, and it's very tired to keep on giving the stereotype version, and just because we're used to it, or not we, but consumers are used to it, now it's time to stop that. And I think this movie goes very far in doing that. That's great actors, wonderful director Prantana Mohan. So yeah, that's coming on the 3rd. And then on the 14th of March, my latest special, it's called Alphabet, is premiering, I keep saying it, streaming on my website, sindhuvee.com. And I co-produced. So I'm very excited by that. I have never done anything like that. And it's a very special piece of work for me, because I wrote it and toured it at a time when my parents were still alive. And they both passed away sort of close together, not that long ago. And so I have never said anything funny that I didn't either come from them or had said to them, or had even told my mom, I want to tell this story. What do you think? She was very, very funny. And so for me, it's like, oh, this is going to be that was the last set of things. And, and so in a way, it's a bit of a gift to anyone who thinks I'm funny, likes to watch me, but also it's a gift. It's a kind of an offering also to my parents, because a lot of the stories, there's a couple of stories in there where I said there's a story about my sister, and I was like so scared to say it on stage. And my mother was like, well, she anyway thinks you're an idiot, so just say it. And I was like, oh my God. And so, those things, and it's a very special show for that reason.
I can't wait to watch it. And it's unique because you co-produced it.
With Charlie Canyon, one of my co-producers.
You financed it.
I financed it.
And instead of partnering with the streamer who underwrote production, you're dropping it on your own website. Talk to us about the business decisions or the creative decisions that prompted you to do something different, and what that could mean for other comedians and how other comedians create and distribute their own content like this.
Yeah, it's a very good question. Look, obviously the dream is that you get Netflix, Amazon, there's a long list to come to you and say, here's a bunch of money, we think you're really funny, do a show. Until that happens, I felt that I could not keep my impulses to get my special or some material out to my audience in a box and keep hoping. No. What can we do? And if there's never been a time, I mean, we live in this time of like, people are taking viral, they're taking videos in the grocery store. And hi guys, today I want to eat a banana. And you're like, what? Who is watching this? And then there's so many views. Turns out, if you are saying something about bananas in the grocery store and someone cares, they will watch you. So you do the math, and even failing math in India, my math is not that bad. And you think, if I have an audience, and if I'm building up an audience on my socials, and I say to them, hey, here's a whole hour of me blabbing, maybe they'll come. And I think they will come. So I thought of that. I also thought, see, I came to stand-up late in my life, and I'd been a banker, and I'd done almost everything I had done up until that point was because I had been told by my parents usually that it was the right thing to do, or I had been afraid of screwing up. So agency was something that I kind of flirted with. But I think this is particularly true for South Asian women, that we internalize a sense of being both confident but risk averse. Because the risk, if it goes wrong, I felt like I would disappoint so many of my elders. And it's not because they were terrible people or there was some big code, but it was just, you didn't do that. There was a band in which you were. But what I found is that by doing all of those things and achieving many things, the one skill I wasn't sharpening was my confidence and my sense of agency. And I hate to say it, but I couldn't even disappoint my parents because they had. So I was like, well, I know, you don't want to laugh, but you know what I mean?
Not laugh.
Yeah, but it's a fact. I was like, well, they're not going to be disappointed because, well, and the show is ready. What if I put my money where my mouth is and see if this idea I have about direct connection, not wanting to wait until the best case scenario happens or the most optimal scenario, and just say, I believe in this. That in itself was, I don't know if I can express to you or you understand what I mean. It was like, what, you're just going to go with your gut. Do you know what I mean?
That's fearless.
Yes, but we're raised to be high achieving, but not necessarily fearless. I don't want to talk for every South Asian woman on the planet, but I feel like it starts small with not bad decisions, but just, that kind of absolute fearlessness. I'm going to go for it, see what happens.
But I think that's so important for us. That's a muscle we all need to cultivate and strengthen.
Yes.
And train the way we do our intelligence and all the other traits that I think make us so remarkable.
Yes, exactly. But I'm not saying that you make this muscle strong and then just start using it willy-nilly all over the place and say, oh, no, not this marriage. Oh, not, I'm just saying, on something. And so I thought, right, let's do it. And then you get a lot of feedback from the world, because then you would say, okay, who's going to make it? And if the best film, stand-up comedy filmmakers in the UK say, oh, I'll work with you. Oh, that's already a sign that you're not completely Dulali, and then you start working on it. And so that was the, I would say, emotional impulse. And then the financing of it was, well, I'd finished filming Pradeep's of Pittsburgh. And so I had, I'd been paid for that year, and I had been I was going on tour in the US, and I'd sold out the tour before arriving here in March. So I knew that financially I was going to be fine. And I budgeted accordingly. And, as a good South Indian girl, I know how to budget. Good Lord. And as someone who'd been studied on scholarship abroad my whole life, you have to budget. There's no credit card. There's no parents who are going to send you money. So what are you going to do? So I did that. And we'll put it all together. And it's really interesting. It all worked. And the whole time I was like, oh my God, I was so surprised that it was working out well. And we had two great shows for the filming. It was just fantastic, So it was those two impulses came together. And I think the third and final one is, I just think that this is the time as a stand-up, for any stand-up, who can get their material out to their audience, There's many different ways to do it. And it's really about being able to have your product, make your product, deliver your product, and you don't need anyone else. And that's right. But you need an audience, apart from that. I think it can work. We'll see.
You've clearly made your mark in stand-up in front on stage. You've also been making your mark in acting in front of the camera, and now it seems like producing.
Let's see. But yeah, I'm co-producing my old special. That's where we're at. Yeah.
What do you want to do next?
Oh my. I'm writing a new show, which has really been interesting because, like I said, I've never been funny without my parents around. It's not that they were giving me material or making me funny. It just feels different. And actually, I should say on this podcast, because I don't like to talk about it, but listen, it's truth, and we may as well say it out on this podcast. My mom passed away. We're a family of 4. Me, Akka, my elder sister, and my parents. My mother passed away, and then my sister passed away, and then my father passed away. So, and things go as they go, and we're all discharging our karma. I get that, but I was only ever funny as the youngest kid in that family, and I'm now sort of funny. I mean, I have a wonderful audience, and you've been very complimentary, but it's almost a new thing for me to be funny in this vacuum of my family of origin. So that'll be something. And so really, Alphabet is dedicated to Akka, my sister, and it's a homage to the 3 of them. Yeah, tricky stuff. So I'm writing a new show, and in a way, it's a little untethered. The kinds of things I think are on my mind, a lot of those things have to do with being a woman. Being a woman, being at the age that I am, where my kids are a bit older. I've been married long enough to know it's gonna last. I mean, it's touch wood, but still, I mean, like, no one's got that kind of energy anymore where it's like, is this working? We're like, is it not working? Fine, I'm busy. You know what I mean? Like, I've been married 26 years. And so that raises a lot of different questions and a lot of different stuff. And that's coming out in the new show. And it's very interesting. And I think it is somehow connected to finding myself as the only one left from that Vekannaran family of our family of 4. That I'm working on. And also, at a personal level, I'm trying to get back into yoga. Because I'm like, I am non-flexible. Like, I am very emotional. My husband doesn't think so, but I am. Like, personally, I am. But in my body, so I'm trying to get back into a serious yoga practice. And that's it. I'm writing a new comedy show, and I'm trying to do yoga seriously. Those are the 2 things. And I've got 3 kids and all that other jazz, So doing all of that it's a lot. It's a lot. And then there's all the other stuff that goes on. You're doing castings, you're reading scripts, you're, doing all that stuff. But that just continues. And if you land something, then we see. And I'm going on tour next year. Amazing. Going back on tour next year with the new show. I think I have a name for the show, but let's see. So I'll start the tour, all things being equal, in the United States. And then move on. And it's going to be global this time. So going everywhere.
Excellent. And we can't wait to watch. I'd love to close our conversation today with kind of how we got started. If you were to sit down with your younger self, what would you tell her?
Oh, God. I think the thing I would say to my younger self would be like, lady, are you high? Is that you will never be more intimate with anyone than you are with yourself. But to understand this, you have to lose a lot of people that sort of formed your sense of yourself. It's only when that happens. But just remember that is the trick. Can you imagine saying this to someone younger than you? They'd be like, what are you talking about? But that's what I would want to convey. And last but not least, I would say that you have to believe that good things are always possible, but so are terrible things. And when you are stuck and you say, why did that happen to me? The more important question is, why not? You know? And from there, I think you could cultivate a lot more equanimity and gratitude.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. Thank you for watching that Desi Spark. We'll see you next time.